Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. Who or what are you celebrating today? For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My show is all about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists, because I do believe that there's more to celebrate than to complain about. Although we're going to celebrate so much today, I have the opportunity to sit here and celebrate five women that really mean the world to me. And they're all making a difference in their respective careers. I'm going to bring the first one on in just a moment. And she has a show that's going to be opening at Don't Tell Mama next week. And that's Natasha Castillo. And she has already done celebrations of the Carpenters before. But I have to say this, I ran into her director last week, and he said to me, it's the best work she's ever done. So I'm going to welcome her to the stage, and here she is, Natasha Castillo. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Richard. I love working with Lenny. It's been over 10 years since I've worked with him. And my last Carpenter show was 10 years ago. But this is a totally different show, so I'm excited about it.
Well, he is raving about it. But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Before we begin and we delve into the Carpenters,
Mhm.
I always ask, who have you celebrated today already?
Well, I think that I'm celebrating you, my friend.
Ah, right
You
answer.
deserve to be
And we're going to
celebrated.
continue celebrating because you and I are having dinner later.
Exactly. So that's why I'm
So
celebrating you.
I'm so excited that you're here. One of the things that I do on my Friday wrap up show, I've got some mystery cards laid out. So pull a card from column A or column B, and we're going to start there and we're going to learn a little bit about you.
Okay. So I think I'm going to be rebellious and start with B because I think most people probably start with A.
Okay. And the card is, would you rather live in an apartment in the city, which I know you do, or a mansion in the country?
I think I always like living in the city because it's the center of everything and I like to be in the city.
Right. Now, you are originally from,
I was I wouldn't say there's a place that I'm from, but I actually grew up here in New York City. So
where were you
before
born?
that, I was born when my mother was on vacation in Malaysia. So she was I came out late. So she thought she was going to give birth to me and then go to vacation, but it didn't happen that way. So
So, what is it about New York City that resonates so deeply with you? What do you like to celebrate New York? I know that you're very active. I'll tell people a little bit about you. You have been operating an open mic. You have a blog yourself. You've celebrated so many artists. I've had the pleasure of being celebrated by you in your shows. But what is it about celebrating other artists for you that you love doing so much? Because one of the things about being in this business, I think, is not just about getting up there and being in the spotlight, but
mhm.
also shining the spotlight on other people. And you're very good at that. So, what is that about for you?
I feel that it has to do with the whole idea of being seen because I went through a period of my life where I had stepped away from music and finding that path back to music is harder than I thought it would be. And there were people along the way that had helped me rediscover music. And because of that, I felt like I was given that opportunity. And I felt honored by that. So I feel like I want to pass that on, and I think that that's the reason why I want to celebrate other people. And I feel like everybody needs an opportunity to feel appreciated. It's something that they love to do. And I think that every little thing that you can do to give them a platform to perform, that to me is more important in my life
That's
right
great.
now.
Now, I want to go back 10 years. You said that's when you did your last celebration of the Carpenters. What
Mhm.
is it about the Carpenters that resonates so deeply with you?
I think that it's because it's music that my mother loved and it's music that I listened to and it just attracted me since I was a child. So I think that it started very early, probably before I was born, because my mother just loved them so much. And also probably because I never got to see them live because by the time I was like they were dead, so when I was a kid. So basically
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, they were very much a
With
part of my
computer
childhood.
set.
I remember listening to the Carpenters. We had the Close to You 8-track tape that was in our car, and we listened to it all the time. But now, going back 10 years later, what's different for you?
Well, I think that 10 years ago, I'm celebrating the life and story of the Carpenters. So that show was a tribute to them. And this show is basically a different premise because there's no piano, it's fully acoustic, and it's a story about myself using their music as basically a running soundtrack of my life. So that's where the
Now, you
difference.
mentioned that there's no piano, but there is guitar.
There's guitar and there's percussion, but
Oh, wow, wow.
it's not like drums, but it's like percussion. So it's a totally, whereas my previous show, I have the full band with with the piano, bass, and drums, but this time it's totally different.
Well, what is your hope that audiences will come away with your show?
That it might remind them of certain periods of their life or certain
Mhm.
musicians that they have connections to and have that sort of experience themselves because they might go back and think, wow, this kind of experience I have with this particular artist. It could be something, somebody might have a Sondheim, connection. They might have all sorts of different types of connection in their life that they feel is the running soundtrack of their life.
That's great. So, Natasha, you're going to stick around because we're going to get back to you in a little bit, but you're going to help us bring on our next guest. Nobody knows who I'm bringing up next. I've got 4 people, door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, or door number 4, and you will help me choose. So you pick.
I want to pick number 3 because I like the number
Well, she also has a show. She's been on this show several times, so
2.
I'm always thrilled to have her here. But she's also going to be at Don't Tell Mama, and she has a new show called Memory Lapse, and we're going to talk about that. And here she is again. Claudine, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Richard. Hi, Natasha. Hi.
Buddy,
Thank
nice.
you.
So I'm going to start with a question that we left off with.
Uh-huh.
Natasha, do you prefer an apartment in the city, or would you rather have a mansion in the country?
I'm a city girl. City girl.
There we have.
I was born and raised here. So
Mhm.
it's like I go to the country, but it is like not and I can relax there, but
Mhm.
I have to be in the city. Yeah.
Well, I was born in South Carolina. I grew up on a tobacco farm in South Carolina. So from the time that I knew what New York was, I said I have to be there.
Uh-huh.
And those who know my show and my story, I made it my mind when I was 13. I picked the date and I said 5 years from today, I'm going to New York, and I did. And I've never looked back. And I have I have the best of both worlds because I live 25 minutes north of Manhattan, and it's a very rural area.
Mhm.
And I feel like I'm in the country here, but in 25 minutes, I am in the middle, in the heart and soul of
Mhm.
New York City.
That's the best. That's
Yeah.
like you got both. You're good.
So let's talk about your show. Tell us a little bit about the genesis of this show,
All right.
and why Don't Tell Mama?
Uh I happen to have there were 2 rooms that I've loved. Metropolitan Room I was crazy about. It was kind of a smallness and intimacy and a class to it. And then there's the Brick Room, which is small and brick and I find it to be very classy space. And there's Sydney. So,
Mhm.
You got Sydney. That's behind you. That's the best.
Those who don't know, 1 or 2 people may not know that that's Sydney Meyer
Yeah.
from Don't Tell Mama.
Yeah. And I think this show is my last show was very much in French, a lot of French, and a lot about my rejecting my French background. This show is more about looking at, I want to say, heroes in my life or people that it starts with a quote from Jean Moreau, which says it starts, age does not protect you from the dangers of love, but love, to a certain extent, protects you from the dangers of age.
What a great quote. Send
I
that quote to
know.
me, please.
Yeah, it's the age does
Beautiful.
not protect you from the dangers of love, But love, to a certain extent, protects you from the dangers of age. So I'm asking, is that true? And as I'm approaching age, I'm thinking, is it true in my life? Is it true for the people I love? Is it true for all of us? And I start to go through people that have shown me that this is true, that have made me feel that love, if you hold on to it, even as you get older, you can age with grace. So, it starts with my grand-mère, who was my great grandmother, and then my mother. My last show was based a lot about my father, but this one is based more with my mom and my mother, and then Mabel Mercer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you, is the aging process something that you embrace, or do you fight it?
I think both. I think both. I have, and I say it in the show, I have a neurological tremor, and it developed during the pandemic, really. And I was told it was neurological, nothing I was doing. So this voice that I just absolutely, understood and loved was now a different voice. And so that's a part of aging that it took me a while. It took me a while to embrace. It took me a while to say, okay, all right, this is where we are. Sing with the voice you got, because you still love song and you still love story. And you still can communicate. So this is a good thing.
And you mentioned Mabel Mercer earlier, and
yes, that was, I saw her. I was 25.
Oh.
And I was absolutely broke. I had done a national tour, and then all my money got spent up because as a young person, I didn't know how to do the right thing. And so I was 25, and I was walking home from a very unsatisfactory audition, and I was literally wearing a borrowed dress. So that's how broke I was. And there she was in the window of a club called Cleo's, her photo. And I thought, I should see her. I'd heard I should see her. So I waited tables for like a month so that I could see her every night. And she was almost 80, and it was a revelation. It was an absolute revelation.
Well, that's a great story. I want to bring on our next guest, but again, column A or column B for your mystery card?
Well, I'll go with A since we had B. All right.
Okay, and your question is, what's the best compliment that you've ever received when it comes to your art?
Oh, wow. Oh, I think when it happens, if somebody comes up and says, I really connected to that. When that happens, that's it.
That is it. That's absolutely it. I did an interview on the radio last night for my upcoming shows in California. And I said, as much as I love being in the spotlight, as much as I love the material that I am performing, to me, the most important element for me is the audience. And if the audience has a great time and if we connect, then I've done my job. And that's the important thing. And that's a lesson to all entertainers. And speaking of which, we've got 3 in the wings.
Okay.
Number 1 through 3.
1 through 3. Let's do 2.
Well, I'm excited to bring her on. She's also, I don't think that she's ever done my Friday wrap-up show, although it's a possibility. She's got an event coming up, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. Her father was Stanley Kramer, and she gets to introduce one of my favorite films. It's a mad, 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 mad world. There are 4 of them. So that's the way to remember. It's a mad, 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 mad world. And she's right here. Kat Kramer, I just absolutely adore you. And it's been so long since you and I have sat face to face.
Yes, yeah, and you're coming out here, because I'm in Los Angeles, and I'm looking so forward to your show on the 21st.
Thank you.
I used to live in New York, so
Tina and Natasha both saw it here in New York.
And it was an awesome show.
Oh, wow.
Treat.
Yeah, I saw it. It was great. It was,
So I have said this to you before, Kat, and you may get tired of me saying this. I want to focus on you, but I want to say thank God for your dad, and thank God for the films that he created. One of my favorite films of all time is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Mhm.
Every single time that movie is on, my husband says, "Are we watching that again?" And I go, "Yes." And I sit there and I cry through the entire film. I mean, every aspect of that film, from the scoring on, is just incredible. And you get a chance to introduce one of your father's films. But do you have a favorite film of his that resonates the deepest with you?
I have to say, I'm just going to go and say, guess who's coming to dinner? Because also my godmother and namesake was Katharine Hepburn. And she always told my parents when I was born, she will forever be telling them spell it with an A. Way in the middle, because nobody ever gets that right.
That's
There's
right.
like 100 different ways of spelling it. So today, there's several of my father's films that change, which is my favorite. But I'm going to say, guess who's coming to dinner? And it's a mad, 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 mad world. So both of them, they tie, especially since I get the opportunity and they asked me to introduce it. I'm introducing and doing the Q&A and some trivia, like a trivia contest that I started all before the movie, because it's like the long version. It has the intermission. It's going to be in 70 millimeter, and
Wow.
it's in Beverly Hills at the Fine Arts, which is an incredible venue. So for anyone out here on the coast, please come on Sunday. You can still get tickets. It usually always sells out. We had an anniversary screening in December, right before Christmas. And, the movie was in 1963, so that was before my time, but it's still very timely now. It really is a mad, 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 mad world with
That's
four.
right. Well, a trivia question for you, since you're going to be doing it. One of the dollies from the original Broadway run is actually in the film.
Yes, can everybody guess?
Yes, tell them.
I
Yes,
don't. Oh, well, Ethel Merman.
Ethel Merman. Yes,
Yeah. And
and
many people feel I mean, there's so many great comics and in the film. I mean, there's very few that didn't make it into the film. Either they couldn't do it or they weren't asked, and there's stories around that. But she, steals the film, I think. I mean, there's so many great actors in it, besides Jonathan Winters and Terry Thomas and Dick Shawn, and of course the usual suspects. But Ethel Merman really, and I just mentioned those names because they're scene stealers. It's hard to steal scenes from Spencer Tracy, Milton Berle, Sid Caesar, Mickey Rooney, Buddy Hackett, Edie Adams, Phil Silvers. But Ethel Merman almost comes out as the one that everybody's quoting after they've seen the movie. So I'm going to ask a few trivia questions, and whoever guesses it right gets a special prize. And this works very well because usually there's diehards in the audience and they do guess the trivia. But I've had a couple times I've stumped people that said they knew the movie backwards and forwards, or they knew trivia from it, but they didn't know the answer. So, but there will be an emphasis on Ethel Merman for sure.
oh, that's great.
So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Now, before we bring on our next guest, I want to ask you. It's in your DNA. Not only did your father make films that changed the world, but that's the name of your company, Films
Yes.
That Change the World. And I know that you've done incredible work with Lily Tomlin and others. And it's all about films that are going to make an impact on our lives. And you do that. What is it about? I mean, you could have gone in a completely different direction, but you chose to go in this direction. And I want to give a nod to your gorgeous mother as well, because you, to me, just continue to carry on that tradition of Hollywood glamour. I have never seen you at an event or something where you did not look every inch the superstar.
Thank you. Well, when I'm playing a role, I don't, but I do try to keep up that. I guess I did learn that from my mom. She was an actress and now she's a producer. And that's just something I guess that I luckily inherited from her, is just, to be glamorous or present yourself a certain way. I have to say, though, that as far as Cat Kramer's Films That Changed the World, which is the branded name, it is in my DNA. I'm just so passionate about, fixing problems in society and bringing awareness to issues that we're afraid to address, just like my father did. And so I don't think it's anything even conscious, just like he wanted to tell stories that mattered to him. There's so many great movies and documentaries that make a difference, especially documentaries. I really focus on nonfiction. And that space is so important because you can really get the message out there without sugarcoating anything. There's so many movies that never get seen or never have a chance to resonate. So that's really why I started the screening series. And I'm doing Shiros for Change Festival coming up this summer, which is all female focused documentaries, female filmmakers, female empowerment issues. And that's concentrated as an outreach from the series. But it's a festival because I'm with this series, I only show one movie at a time. This is, going to be like 3 days of feature documentaries and shorts. And they're all nonfiction, and they're all examining, women that have made a difference, heroes. A lot of them have been overlooked, and a lot of them are very high profile. So I'm really excited about that.
That's great. Anytime you have anything to promote, as you all do, just reach out to me. So column A or column B, and then we're going to bring on our next guest.
Column A.
And your card is, what do you believe in despite having no proof of it?
Oh, extraterrestrials and life on other planets.
I certainly believe that myself, and I'm sure that they're visiting here and we just are not aware of it. Or maybe we are. So on that note, door number 1 or door number 2 for our next guest?
Number 2.
Well, I am excited because she has a new CD that released today called Wanderlust. And Andrea, can you hear me?
Yes.
And I can hear you, and that's beautiful. Andrea and I, Andrea's been on the show before as well, and I would say out of all the guests that are here today, you and I have the longest history. I bring it up every time. But we appeared in an off-Broadway show, off-Broadway show that was so bad.
Way off.
There were many nights where we didn't get to Act 2 because the audience would be gone by the time it was over, through no fault of Andrea or me.
I did not appear until the second act, but there were some times where at intermission, we saw people going down the street and never coming back. But I met Richard there, so that was the joy.
You're my only connection with that part of. But I want to talk about Wanderlust. It hit today, and it is incredible. I was listening to it this morning, and you must be very, very proud of this.
I am. I'm exhausted. I'm proud. I'm happy. I'm all the everything roller coaster, because it's been it is called Wanderlust, and it has been a long and winding road. It's my 4th recording of my own. I'm on other people's recordings as well, but it took me a long time to get back into the studio to do my music. So it's been quite a journey. So I'm very happy that it's
quite a journey. You have really, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but you've left the acting profession and your focus is on your jazz work. And from my perspective, it seems as if you're always working. And I know that that's happening because of, not only your talent, but your tenacity in terms of going out to get these gigs. What do you think is the biggest change that you've seen since you first started as a jazz singer in the industry, whether that be with live performance or recorded music? And what is the changes, or what are the changes that you have embraced? And what are the things that you missed that were in place when you started?
One huge change that I think affects everybody in all genres is streaming. Is that people, it's much harder to make money by selling your music because people are streaming and not necessarily buying. So that's definitely a challenge, just navigating that world. And there are people who just feel like, well, I'm not going to put my stuff on the streaming services. And then others who feel it's a necessary evil. I'm just kind of going step by step and figuring it out as I go along, especially with this one, because I put this one out myself. My last two were on record labels. This one I'm doing myself. So it's just been so much to figure out. So that's one big change. I guess the other change is just in terms of the scene, the jazz scene, it has a little bit of a different feeling now than it did when I started. Less of
Do you feel that the pandemic really put a huge dent in the field?
It did. I mean, we all saw our gigs disappearing that first week, right? We're canceled. And there are clubs that closed and never came back, which is really awful. But a lot of people are working a lot. Things are coming back in the sense that there's a lot of live music happening, as I'm sure you all know. I think there's also a lot of denial about how pandemic-y type illnesses are kind of with us to stay, and people are acting as if they're not.
Well, trust me about it. I want to bring on our next guest, who's been waiting patiently in the wings. But before we do that, column A or column B?
B.
And your question is, would you rather be rich or famous, or are you both of those things already?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like maybe a little bit of each, but those aren't my main concerns, to be honest. Those are not my.
For me,
concerns.
I would like to have the fame to open the doors. If I could, walk through those doors, then
Absolutely.
that to me is what it's about. But I want to speak.
Totally agree.
That is a perfect segue to our next guest, who has become a friend of mine, and I love her dearly. And she just won a Bistro Award last year, and she has this incredible show about her life on the red carpet, and she's interviewed everybody in the business. And I'm thrilled that you're here, Therese.
Thanks, Richard. I actually interviewed Kat several times.
Oh.
Like, for some movie premieres and some things like that, events at the Hilton. I remember interviewing you.
So Therese, I'm going to go, and I hope you don't mind me going here, based on the conversation that you and I had recently. I mean, I was watching, and I'm going to bring this up because I was watching an interview the other night with Louise Reiner, and she was the first actress to win 2 Oscars back to back. And and after she won those 2 Oscars, they didn't know what to do with her in Hollywood. And she said that she regrets the fact that kind of fame hit with such an impact so early in her career. This show that you created, had such an impact. And then you're winning awards, you're appearing at the Cabaret convention and everything. But then, in today's world, those doors are not always opening to get to the next step and everything. What keeps you going, and and what gets you to the next step that you need to be at in your career?
Well, I've had a lot of friends that have helped me kind of work through some things. It was an amazing year. On Facebook, I just saw that last year last year I'd landed in New York to go do my show on the 15th and then get the Bistro Award on the 17th. And, and this year I'm struggling to find work, to pay the rent. So it's an interest. That's a friend of mine who is a working, well-known actor just said to me, that's what you signed up for. That's the life. The hustle never stops. And I just have to remind myself that when I was in the middle of all of that, I was happier than I'd ever been in my whole life. Not from just in the creative process of all of that, not the, I mean, the award was wonderful and seeing at the convention was wonderful, but it was the whole process of, you know, working with Jeff and working with Doug and writing every day and singing every day. And to remind myself, like, that's what I need to be doing. And the other stuff is just icing on the cake, but it's the process, you know, that makes me happy. I mean, happier than I've ever known in my life.
Well, I
So,
want to talk about the process. You know, you had a great team surrounding you. The show was incredible. I saw it a couple of times, and I could see it again right now. I love it. So after, you know, having that kind of an impact, like we all experience, we all have a great opening night. It's like, I mean, I am chomping at the bit. I will be in Palm Springs a week from tonight, and but you know, it's not like I'm performing as often as I would like to between these moments, and it's like we're constantly, you know, if you're an animal person, my cat chases his tail, and that's what I feel like I'm like sometimes in this business.
yeah, I mean, I think I can't place my self-worth on what other people are, or, you know, the reactions that are happening outside of me. I have to just, and this has been my struggle all my life, to just know that what I have is valuable just because it's mine and I have it and it was given to me as a gift by, you know, my higher power. And that the expression of that is a gift to my higher power back, you know, but the results are not up to me. And as I say that, that helps me remember that. Sometimes I just say things out loud so that I can hear myself say it and not worry about what other people think about me or what I'm doing. So, you know, Andrew Horowitz, God bless him, you know, he had been a life coach at one point. So we've been talking every week and
Oh,
working
good.
on a plan for, my intention, here I'm saying this publicly, is to move to
No,
New York in October. That's my intention. To
it's
give
going
my,
to happen. We're going to manifest it. I
yes,
believe in that. Yeah.
I'm 61 years old. You think I was 20? You know, I've lived in LA for 44 years.
You're a baby.
So, you know, but give myself a shot, you know, give myself a shot, even if it's just a couple of years. And it doesn't matter what happens. It's the adventure of it, you know, because if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. It's time to
No,
do it,
it's
you know.
time to do it. Well, I'm going to move on in just a moment. But before we do, column A or column B, please.
Column A.
And your question is, I love this. What's the most surprising self-realization that you've had this week?
This week. That I know how to get through this. You know, I've been through whatever it is I'm going through, this kind of living on the edge thing. I've been there. I'll get through it. Done it many times. I'll probably do it again. God help me. Yeah.
We'll compare notes sometime.
Yeah.
So one of the things, you know, those who, again, who watch the show, I am a big follower of Julia Cameron and The Artist Way. And I read a lot of books. We should see the stack of books on creativity and process and spirituality and tying it all together. So the questions that I'm going to ask each of you are based on my readings this week. And I'm going to start with you, Natasha. And the first question is, what worked well for you as we're wrapping up this week, and worth doubling down on for next week? And I know next week you've got a show coming up. So what has really worked for you this week?
I would say that this week being focused on keeping my mind at a positive space is very important because, as you know, I've had some recent challenges with my younger sister being sick. So I think that, you know, keeping that positive space for her has worked for me because I'm supposed to go and visit her in at the end of May. So I'm putting a lot of positive energy out there because I firmly believe in the law of attraction, which is why I think that, Therese, you're doing a great thing for yourself by just taking that chance. It's courageous and you're going out there to try something just because of a belief. Because I think whatever you manifest in your mind, you can make it happen. And I always believe that.
And thank you for saying that. I truly believe that as well.
Mhm.
Claudine, what stories? I mean, no, I'm going to rephrase this. What are some of the stores that were in place when you first began in this profession? Uh,
Stores?
yes, that are no longer there.
Uh,
I'm gonna mention one, and maybe you'll go there as well, and that's the Colony, and, which I hung out in all the time.
mhm.
Was that a store that you frequented when you were
I'm gonna flip over to the clubs that were there when I started.
That's fine, absolutely.
There was Barbara Ann's, and there was besides Barbara Ann's, there was Brothers and Sisters and Mickey's. I was at Mickey's a lot. All these wonderful, wonderful clubs where they didn't really care if you filled up the house.
Mhm.
They just wanted you to get up and sing. And there was sort of a charm to them. There definitely was a charm to them, not sort of, get that out. But they were just absolutely wonderful. And then if I'm going to think about stores, I'm always going to think about Heart and Heart Art.
Oh,
And then,
that was in place when I first came to New York, so
yeah,
I'm
and then the Mayflower coffee shop, which used to be by the 59th Street Bridge. And when I was in high school, and I'd come into the city to see shows or audition or do whatever I was doing. I was auditioning for junior choirs. I would always stop there and load up. And their slogan was, "Whatever, as you walk through life, brother, whatever be your goal, keep your eye upon the donut and not upon the hole."
But don't you miss
I love
coffee
that.
shops in general? I mean, it amazes me how many places are shutting down at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like nowhere to go after a show. I mean, we used to go to coffee shops and sit, and the Westway Diner closes at 11 o'clock.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Fun. So I miss those. I mean, Thursday, a Thursday after midnight, I used to go to the nearest newsstand, get backstage, and then go to a coffee shop, order breakfast at 2 o'clock in the morning, and circle everything that I was going to audition for in the next week.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
gone. I just miss
Yeah.
it. So, Kat, I want to ask you, when it comes to your art, who is the one person that you would like to spend the most time with in the next year?
Time with, you mean in terms of my work or
In
art?
terms of your work.
Obviously, Lily Tomlin. I mean, she's my performing idol, but she's also the ambassador for Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World. And she's one of the inspirations for Sheroes for Change. So, yeah, I have a long list, but she's definitely number one.
Oh, I love her. Love her. And Andrea, when have you said yes in your career and it was the absolute right decision?
Oh, okay. Pretty much most of the time that I've said yes. In fact, transitioning, let's say, from being more of a theater person into jazz was something that I did not expect to happen. But I was just kind of putting one foot in front of the other, and found myself on this path, and it just felt right. And I just kept saying yes, one time after another. I just also want to say it's so moving to hear each one of you speak. I'm actually sitting here with tears in my eyes.
Wow.
Really appreciating the honesty and feelings that everyone is expressing so openly. It means a lot. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here as well. Therese, and I already know the answer to this next question, but what was the light bulb moment that happened with you with putting your story on stage and the genesis of the creation of your recent show?
Even how did it happen?
What was that spark of inspiration that you said, this is it, this is what I need to do?
Well, it was funny. I was having lunch with Jeff in December of 2019.
Jeff Harner.
Yeah, Jeff Harner. He was visiting, and I meant to meet him in Orange County. And I was telling him just kind of offhandedly, I went through a period of time, I go through this periodically where I was very, very broke, and I lost my car, and I was still interviewing people on the red carpet. And I was just telling him what a weird period of time that was to get on the bus in Los Angeles and take the bus to go interview George Clooney and then take the bus home. And he said, that sounds like a cabaret act. And I said, well, I was always thinking I should do it and call it riding the bus to the red carpet. I was just going to do a vlog about that. And he said, let's do a cabaret act. And it just felt like, oh yeah, here we go. This is it. Yeah.
Do you have any upcoming performances scheduled, or?
No, I don't have it.
Yeah. Let's talk.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to put this out there since I'm going to be at Santa Monica Playhouse. They have been phenomenal. And they came in the lurch because everything, I don't want to mention the other place, but it was just not the right place for me to be doing the show. And Barbara Minkus, dear friend, suggested Santa Monica Playhouse. And I got an email from them the other day, and they said, we want to acknowledge your professionalism because I actually respond to every email. And they said that's something they don't get, even if it's just to say, I got this, I'm looking over it, something. And I think it's important for those of you who are either watching or on the live or later, respond to these emails, because all of us in this business want to be acknowledged. No matter what level you're at, no matter what you've accomplished, what you haven't accomplished, that's it. So, Natasha, I want to ask you, what have you discovered about yourself working on your new show?
Well, I discovered that it's good to put myself out of the comfort zone because I've worked on, this is like my 5th cabaret show. And previously, I've worked with music directors that are strictly piano music directors. And this is the first time I'm working with just guitar as a music director. There were challenging parts of it because obviously transforming Carpenter's music strictly to guitar, it takes a lot of work. So it requires patience. But at the same time, it's getting used to something that you really don't expect. And I think that it's good to shake things up.
Great. Claudine, I mean, a lot of people, especially in our profession, like to gripe. I want to go in the opposite direction. What is a very strong opinion that you have about something positive in our industry?
Oh God, community. Just community. I think I tend to be very shy, so it's a little hard. But when I can feel community, when I went to the Bistro Awards the other night, and you felt community. But not even that, you just see it in the way people talk to each other, the way people ask each other how they're doing, what's your next show about, or what's going on. My husband's an actor, and when he's in a show, the people in his show community are all, family. Everybody becomes family, and even if you don't see each other for a while, you become family again. So
don't you find that having that mindset, and I'm going to move on to Kat with this thought as well, but having that mindset, which I have as well, that when you were operating in that mindset, there's no room for competitiveness or competition. You are actually doing the best work that you can bring to the table, and I believe that most people in this profession want the best for each other. I truly do believe that.
Well, I believe in social learning, so that's part of it. We learn from each other, which is great.
Kat, I want to ask you, what are 3 very strong habits that you have when it comes to your work ethic that have brought you to where you are now with your work?
Well, for singing and acting, because they're so related, I guess spending time by myself or isolating to really get to the core of what the lyrics mean or what the role is about. Research, if I'm playing a famous person or just anyone, what their profession is or wherever they came from. I'm very big on the research. And then I think imagination. I know Herbert Berghoff and Uta Hagen talked about that. and I studied with them when I was much, much younger. I think having an imagination and just imagining is more important than, you don't actually have to do it. You just have to imagine, and visualization. Those are all big habits.
Very good. And I
I
truly,
try to be positive. Like,
yeah. Andrea, did you transition? I've always wondered about this, from the acting profession into the jazz world. And was that an easy transition for you?
Interestingly, when I was in college, I kind of had a fantasy to be a jazz singer, but I did not pursue it at all. I really didn't get into it. And then as I said, I kind of found myself on this path, and I had a lot to learn because singing jazz is not, it's different than what I had been doing. And there are certain aesthetic standards, let's say, that one needs to meet. And I had to do a lot of work once I realized, I'm doing okay, but I have a lot to learn. And I jumped in and found people to study with and ways to learn, and just kind of absorbed everything that I could. And so it was very easy, not easy. It depends. It was, in many ways, it's been really satisfying in a lot of ways, being not really knowing actually that I was a songwriter when I started out, or that I was really an improvising musician. These were discoveries I made along the way, and they've been at times challenging, but very, very satisfying.
Great. Therese, when it comes to creating your art, what pace best describes how you work?
I tend to percolate, and then all of a sudden it comes. I'll be like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then it just, like, all of a sudden it's there. And it's just because my brain's been working on it, and subconsciously.
Okay. And Natasha, who do you turn to for support in this business?
I would say a lot of times, just like definitely Lenny, because I worked with him for so many years, and he's like family. And obviously all my friends, because I find that this community, you make like the best friends, because if you look at people's shows, mostly there are other people within the community. And that's what I love about this community, because everybody supports everyone else. And that's what's so beautiful about the cabaret community.
Wonderful. I want to give a shout out. I've been working with a career coach, Patrice McKinley, who I highly recommend to anyone out there who's looking. And I haven't worked with Andrew, so him as well. But I don't think he's really doing that anymore, Therese, is he? Or okay, so then I would say Patrice McKinley. I don't want to slight Andrew or anyone else. So one of the, she is a practitioner of a man named Bob Proctor. And one of the things that Bob Proctor talks about are terror barriers that we create in our lives. These are terror barriers, those fears that we have that are sometimes difficult for us to walk through. But once we walk through them, we realize that they were not as frightening as we thought they were. So Claudine, I want to ask you, are there terror barriers in your career? And if so, what do you do to get past those terror barriers?
Well, right now, I don't think my voice is a terror barrier anymore. I've gotten used to the sound of it, and I like it. And it's working. I think, I wrote a very wordy piece. So I think right now memory is a little bit of a terror barrier. But that's me getting in my own way, because the writer me wants the actor me to say the words that the writer me wrote, and I might improvise. So that's, but it's not important. I think it's just, you just go out there and you do it.
That's right. Kat, again, I may know the answer to this question as well. I would like to know who do you consider the role models in your life, and do you consider yourself a role model?
Oh boy. Well, my mom is a role model. Katharine Hepburn was, obviously, Lily Tomlin. I have so many idols, but those are the top females. Do I consider myself? Well, I love Barbara Streisand too. I have to throw that out, and obviously with your Dolly show coming up, I'm excited just in celebrating all the Dollies.
Thank you for saying
I
that. I have,
don't know.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you were going to say?
No, I was going to say I was doing an interview this morning with Joanne Worley, who was one of my guests in Santa Monica next week, and the interviewer came on and said, "Well, Barbara Streisand was too young to do the movie. The movie should have been done by Carol Channing." And I said, "I am a huge fan of Carol Channing, as anyone knows that." Right? You was big surprise, and it would have been wonderful if Carol Channing got the movie. And it's sad for her that she didn't get the movie. But my show is all about celebrating, and I celebrate what each Dolly brings to the role, and therefore I will celebrate Barbara instead of offer criticism for the fact that I don't think she was too young for the role, based on the time frame. And I think as time has gone on, that people have a better appreciation for the film now than they did in the time frame that it came out. It came out in 1969, the same year that Midnight Cowboy came out. So I think people's habits of going to the movies were very, very different from that. Andrea, I want to ask you, with all that you've got happening right now, what one area of your life or your art has gotten the least amount of attention this week that you would really like to change and rectify?
In terms of, well, yeah, in terms of my art, I have to say, because I've been so focused on the release of the CD, that I'm not, getting over here and practicing as much as I should be. So hopefully soon get back to that.
I'm asking you the opposite end of that spectrum. What area, when it comes to your career, your art, what area is getting too much of your attention?
Is that for me?
Yes.
What area of my career is getting too much attention?
Yes.
Honestly, I've been in the mode of, I've been in survival mode. So I feel like I haven't really put the attention that there's been no attention given to my career, to be perfectly honest. I was grateful that you gave me this invitation to come.
Well, I'm thrilled you're here. Again, you're one of my, I love you so much, and I love your show, and I love your art, and so that goes without saying. And it's put it on the record; it's there forever. So, Natasha, you mentioned Lenny, of course, but in addition to Lenny, who are the people that you've worked with who have made the greatest impact when it comes to the work that you do?
You're talking about like musically?
Yes, yes.
I would say, well, one of them being the late John Kaprowski, actually, because through Singers Forum, he invited me to be the co-host of the Singers Forum open mic, which later evolved into Spotlight on You open mic, which I've continued for going into 7 years this year. This open mic, I kept it going in memory of in memory of him. And he's always been so supportive of everybody else. So definitely John. And also just like people that I see that I admire, because there are a lot of people within the community that I admire for their work in there, like yourself, Richard. You put so much effort in promoting other people and being supportive. And I think that there's quite a few of those people, like Scott Barbarino as well. He's put so much into supporting the community, and he encourages everybody. And I work for him, as you know. I have this photo journal on Nightlife Exchange where I kind of review shows as well. So there's definitely no lack of people that I admire and aspire to become more like it. And it also motivates me to be part of the Mac board, which I am part of. So I think there's definitely a lot of different people. Great. I could go on for like so afternoon. We don't want to continue.
Claudine, what was the light bulb moment for you when you said, "This is the profession for me"?
Oh God, I think my dad said that I sang from the time I was like standing the first time I stood. So I think it was always that I wanted to sing. I did. I worked in the profession for about almost 20 years, and then I went into education. And then about 10 years before I retired, I took a leave of absence and did more singing. And I said, no, this is what I want. And I retired as quickly as I could and went back, and what I wanted was cabaret. I didn't want, I love acting, but I really wanted cabaret. And more than that, I want storytelling. That's the fascinating part for me.
Okay. Speaking of storytelling, Kat, what was your favorite childhood book and why?
Oh my gosh. Well, the one that comes to mind is some children's book called Goodnight Moon.
Oh, yes.
Remember that? I don't know. I was fascinated. My moon is in Aquarius, so I don't know, but I didn't know that at the time. I was into storytelling and books and fairy tales from the time I was born and the time I could read or even look at pictures. And I think for some reason that book resonated with me. And so that's the one that comes to mind. I think I must have had my mom read it to me every night. And I was just fascinated by the moon.
Mhm. I am. I'm drawn to the moon. Andrea, what is one activity that you're naturally drawn to when it comes to creating your art? And do you spend at least did you spend at least 5 minutes on that today?
Well, you're asking the tough questions. I mean, I am naturally drawn to, honestly, I think that all the ways that we spend our time go into the big pot that makes us who we are. And so I'm naturally drawn to read, to watch old movies, to sing. There's just so many things that I love to do. And I think they just kind of all go into the mix. And if I could just say one more thing, Therese, is it Therese?
Yes.
Am I saying it correctly? I'm really appreciating hearing what you're saying, because the truth is, for the vast majority of us who are in the performing arts, there's a lot of, we're out in public saying, here's what I'm doing that's great. But man, there's a lot of downtime, a lot of time when we feel like we're struggling. And of course, now with social media, I don't want to go on social media and complain or say I'm feeling bad today, or I didn't get that gig I really wanted, or whatever. So I want to go and celebrate. But the truth is, I think, right, we all have a lot of times where we feel like it's really hard and maybe wonder if it's worth it. And I just wanted to say that and to acknowledge that I hear where you are, and it's probably a familiar place for most of us.
Yeah. Well, that brings me, to and then I've got one last question that I'm going to ask all of you. But I have a friend, Leanne Borghese. Some of you may know her. And Leanne Borghese, if I, and I try not to, but I've had my moments where something really gets to me and I'll post something on Facebook and I will immediately get a phone call from her. And she'll say, Richard, this is your welfare check. I'm checking on your welfare. And she's brilliant about that. So, Therese, I want to ask you, who gives you your welfare checks? Who are the people that reach out to you when they know that you're having a low moment or a low day?
Well, you have reached out to me, Richard, and my friend Nancy, who is watching today. I have friends that check on me, and I have learned for myself that I know that I need to start calling people. I need to get out of my house. If I sit at home alone on the computer, my head is going to do me in. I need to get out and see people. I go say hello to the neighborhood dogs that I know, and then I feel a lot better. And then it's my perspective that needs to change more than anything, because everything actually is fine right now. It's just my perspective.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to give each of you a chance to have your final word in a moment. I'll talk about that. But before we do, as we wrap up the week, I want to know whether it could be a book, It could be a movie, it could be a show that you've seen that really inspired you in the last week. And I'll start with you, Natasha.
Oh my God. I was hoping that you'd go to somebody else because you kind of caught me by surprise right there. I think that well, I would say that I do find that I wouldn't say like it's a show or it's more like it would be a book because there was I know a lot of people recently they don't they stopped reading books, but I do find that it really helps to read a lot, and I like to read a lot of more spiritual books. And even though I don't consider myself affiliated to any particular religion, but I read Buddhist sutras, and I find that they are pieces of wisdom. I'm not a religious person like that, but you learn really interesting things in, these so-called parables, but they're not really parables. They're teaching you very interesting things. Like in the Lotus Sutra, for example, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara talks about how he or she approaches a king in the form of a king, and a beggar in the form of a beggar. So that's teaching like a very significant wisdom there. It means like when you speak to different people, you have to speak to them in the language that they understand. So sometimes I get those little things as I read through these sutras, and I find it to be very calming, and it helps me focus.
I went to see Mindy Fradkin last night, and she, which was wonderful, and she told this story that she was raised Jewish. She became a Christian Scientist, but she studies Buddha, and she said that and I didn't know this, but Buddha was born a prince, but he wanted to live like everyone else lived, so he went and took a vow of poverty so that he could experience what other people were experiencing. And that was really inspiring to me to hear that story last night. Claudine, same question for you. Something that inspired you this week artistically.
Well, actually, we're watching Ripley right now, and I cannot remember his name. Scott, Adam Scott,
Andrew.
Andrew. Thank you. The economy that he's using in this, I mean, at first I was like, oh no, I don't want to watch this because it's going to be dark. But I just was mesmerized. So yeah, so he just said, okay, you don't have to be all over the map.
Wow.
To be an actor. Yeah.
Kat?
Yeah, I was sitting here trying to remember because I've got so much going on. What did I see recently? Well, I got a book for my birthday, which was last week. I haven't read it yet, but I wanted it, so I'm lucky I got it, about Anita Pallenberg, because I'm a huge Rolling Stones fan and aficionado, and I have a show called My Duet with Mick, and I did an album of Mick and Keith, the solo songs and their obscure gemstones. But this is about the muse. She was really more Keith Richards' muse, but she really was a feminist. She was a pioneer in so many ways. She just passed away recently, and she was an Aries, born April 6th. My birthday was April 4th, and she really embodied her beliefs and her style onto the Rolling Stones. So a lot of what you see through the decades, especially in their dress and their personas, and especially Keith Richards, Anita was so much the voice, and I can't say he copied her, but she really influenced him. So that's the book that I know a lot about it, but I'm going to be reading it. It's already influenced me, and it's called She's a Rainbow, which is the name of one of my shows that I'm working on.
Oh, wow.
I think it's by Simon Wells. I think that's the author. And there's a new movie about her called Catching Fire, the Anita Pallenberg story. It's a documentary.
Oh, wow.
So
Is it on
it's
Netflix or
yeah.
Amazon? Is it available on Netflix?
I don't know. It's at a film festival right now out here. I think so. I'd have to check on that.
Oh, I'd love to see
It's
that.
available.
Andrea, same question.
I have two things come to mind. One is that last Sunday I went to hear Janice Siegel from the Manhattan Transfer and guitarist Pete McCann. I know both of them, and they just did a duo set that was so amazing. I just left there high. It was just so wonderful. And the other thing I wanted to say, Claudine said something when she first came on that I found inspiring. I teach singing, and so I know I'm not a medical professional, but I know some things about things like essential tremor and all of these things. And I loved what you said, Claudine, about, I'm probably not going to quote you exactly, but you said something like that you still have something to communicate, even if your instrument is not what it was before.
Mhm.
You still have yourself and your voice and your stories and your heart and all of that to communicate, to give, and that means a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. That was a really
thank
great
you.
thing to hear. Yeah.
And Therese.
I have two things. One is Conan O'Brien doing Hot Ones. I just watched that YouTube show where they eat hot wings and the guy interviews them. And
I haven't seen that.
it's just like he just balls to the wall. Sorry to use that expression, but just like was drinking the hottest, like, and answering questions and going, "Bring it on! You don't know what danger looks like." And just like at the just like totally fearless. I've never seen anything quite like it. And the other thing that has inspired me recently is that new Beatles video. I don't know if you all have seen it, the new song that they Now and Then. And Peter Jackson did the video. And just the idea for me that Paul McCartney took him 30 years to get that thing done. You know, it started in the 70s with John's tape, and then they tried to do it with George and Ringo and Paul in the 90s, and they couldn't take it apart enough to get John's voice. And then 20 more years or 30 more years later, Peter Jackson develops that technology, and the friendship and the love behind that, to me, that he would take all that time to put that together. I just like that. Honestly, that's where my next show lies, is in that kind of connection and inspiration and love, like that deep love that lasts for them for generations. I just
Wow.
that I hold on to that every day.
Well, thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here today. And I'm going to give you a chance to have your final word today. It could be about anything that we spoke about that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message that you just want to leave everyone here. With any of these things that you've brought up today, if you'll send me a link about it or anything, I can include that on the YouTube channel so that more people can check these things out as well. And the one lesson that I get from today's show is that we are all connected. And no matter where we've come from, no matter what we've done, we are all connected. And I think that the reason, my theory, that this world is so fractured right now is because, and I want to go back to something Claudine said earlier. When I look at my age, I'm 63. I am happy to be 63. I am proud that I grew up at a time where families sat together to watch the news and watch the same news. There were 3 networks. Oh my God, I would love to go back to that. Jessica Lange once said that when she started the business, there were 3 networks, and there was more quality television than there are right now with 50,000 channels. And I think with 50,000 channels, everything's scattered. Everyone's trying to put filler out there. And the quality, I think, although there's a lot of quality still there, that it's missing from our lives. And I think that if people just realize how connected we are, this fear and this hatred and this fear of lack is going to disappear. We just have to hold on to that. And I'm going to give the same message that I do at the end of every show. And then I'm going to turn it over to you, Natasha. So think about this for a moment. And so when you finish, you will pick the next person and the next person and the next person until the last person is standing. And when you say goodbye, I will end the show so you don't have to worry about how do I get out of here. I'll take care of it. But the same message that I give at the end of every show, I'm sure all of you or most of you know, last month, my mom passed away suddenly. The thing is that my mom and I spoke that morning, and I was able to say I love her. She was not ill. There was nothing to prepare us for this. she went to bed that night and she died in her sleep. And it's a mystery to all of us as to what her cause of death was. My sister, my brothers down in South Carolina, they made a decision not to have an autopsy. So that mystery will always be there. But the bottom line is that that morning we spoke. And I think that communication is something that we need to have going all the time. I always end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list. I want everybody on this show to do the same thing. And the first name that pops up in your feed, reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. And let that person know the impact that they've made on your life. And by doing so, you're going to make an impact on their life. I have a dear friend, Sean Moniger, and he says, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different sized boats. And I always say, I don't care what size boat you're on, as long as you have a skipper by your side. And with that, I'm going to leave the screen. I'm going to turn over you to Natasha. And when you finish, you will pick the next person. And I'll see you later tonight, Natasha. Okay?
Yes.
I'll see you later. Okay.
So, well, I just wanted to leave everything with just one very important thing is that I think that we as individuals, we have more power than you can imagine. And whatever you focus your mind to, if you truly believe it and take baby steps towards that direction, you're going to achieve that goal. And I believe that firmly. I've overcome like life-threatening illness like cancer because of the way that my mind works. And I think that anybody can achieve that. So don't despair whenever you feel down. Just believe. So I would like to go to Therese.
Thank you. Well, I'm so grateful to have been here today. Thank you, all you lovely women, and Richard. And I just agree with what Natasha just said. You know, just keep try to be positive, stay in a positive place. And I had a friend that used to say, the only way out is through. You know, this day will come, it will go, and tomorrow things could be completely different. So just hang on. Thank you. And let's go to Claudine.
To me?
Claudine.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I think I was just thinking about a rowboat, and I don't know why I was, but I was thinking about, well, you have to keep rowing, but you also have to have ways of reaching out to other people that are maybe in the water or that maybe need your help. So that was something going through my mind. But the other thing going through my mind is that we've been with Richard, we've been 6 people who have just shown our strengths and our vulnerabilities. And that is quite an amazing thing. And I think that's what we do when we perform, but it's what we do when we live. So, and with that, I'm going to go to Kat.
Oh, thanks. Well, I had to say that when Richard brought up about his mom passing away, that Richard knows that my older sister, actually, we don't have the same mother, but from my father's first marriage, she passed away unexpectedly on Christmas Eve. And same thing, we didn't have an autopsy because it was natural causes, but we don't really know exactly what caused it. So we've been dealing with that as a family. And so that's why it's so important to just focus on spirituality and being very positive. And this logo behind me is Kat Kramer Comedy. And I actually launched Kat Kramer Comedy during the pandemic, stand-up. I'd never done it before. I've only done sketch comedy. I'd never done anything. I tried it, but I was never doing it regularly because we really need to laugh. And, you know, I try and put as many social issues and world peace and community and love into my jokes, and also explore the paranormal because that's something I'm very fascinated by. But laughter, especially with Mad World coming up, and during this time on the planet and just all the things that are happening, getting through the strikes and everything in our industry, this is the time we really need to all bond together and laugh as much as possible. So celebrate laughter, celebrate each other. And, you know, if something's funny, don't be afraid to express that. I think that's the best advice I could give. And so I'm going to call on Andrea.
Thank you. It's hard to follow all of that. I'm just because this is my new baby, I'm just going to show you all, although I guess it's backwards. That's the new album. But really, lately, I feel sometimes like I get into being a doing machine. There's so much to do. And it's been really peaceful and wonderful just to spend this hour and a quarter with all of you. So I really sincerely thank you, Richard, for all you do. You are an inspiration. It's quite amazing. And to thank all the other women who were here today. Therese, Natasha, Claudine, Kat, thank you all for just sharing this time. It's felt really good. Thank you. Bye.